Canonization Mass, over which Pope Francis is presiding today, comes as the Vatican prepares to consider a local nun for sainthood.
Sister Blandina Segale was a member of the Sisters of Charity in Delhi Township. Local 12's Larry Davis joins us now with her very impressive resume, right, Larry?
That's right, Cammie. When you think of Cincinnati women who have made a difference, names like Ruth Lyons, Marion Spencer, Harriet Beecher Stowe come to mind. How about Sister Blandina Segale? Many of you may have never heard of her, but what she did during her lifetime may very well make her a saint. Blandina Segale joined the Sisters of Charity at the age of 16. Her first mission work took her to the wild, wild west in the 1870s. She helped build schools in Colorado and New Mexico. She kept journals which she used to write a book, The End of the Santa Fe Trail.
It's just a tremendous testimony to her faith and courage and just going about, rolling up her sleeves and helping the people that needed to be helped and to, do what needed to be done, really.
Sister Judy Metz, the archivist for the Sisters of Charity, says along the way, Sister Blandina encountered Billy the Kid and his gang. After treating a wounded member of the gang back to good health, Billy the Kid told Sister Blandina he would never harm her or her fellow sisters. Years later, Billy the Kid tried to rob a stagecoach. Sister Blandina was on board.
She looked out and realized it was Billy the Kid, and she said, well, I can stop this. And so she hung out the window of the stagecoach and she just kind of waved, and he saw her and he just said, okay, and he called everybody off.
Sister Blandina returned to Cincinnati and helped found the Santa Maria Institute, which still has a home in Price Hill. It was there she helped Italian immigrants and fought to win women back from prostitution, even knocking on the door of a brothel.
She knocks on the door and the madam opens the door and she says to her, this is a disgrace and you need to close this place, and, really challenges her, which not too many people, I don't think, would do.
Sister Blandina stood up for all people, Native Americans, Mexicans, and this note from Thomas Edison shows they worked to create a device to help the deaf hear.
I think she's the kind of person that had an attitude like, I'm not doing this for myself, and so I need to do it for these other people that really need help.
And Cammie, 2 miracles are required to be canonized as a saint. Blandina has one, which makes her eligible for beatification. Now, supporters hope that there will be another miracle reported that could help make her Saint Blandina. Cammie, back to you.
Great story, Larry. Thank you. While Sister Blandina fought for social justice, she was also known for her kindness to children, once hosting 400 children for an outing at Coney Island. Sister Blandina died in 1941 at the age of 91.
Sister Blandina Segale. Courageous and dauntless, understanding and kind, determined and blunt, with common sense and a sense of humor, dedicated and prayerful. The hallmark of her life was adherence to St. Vincent de Paul's instruction, do what presents itself.
Maria Rosa Segale was born January 23, 1850, in a small mountain village near Genoa, Italy. Her parents, Francesco and Giovanna, followed their dream for a better future, traveled to the United States in 1854 with their 5 youngest children and others from their village. Settling in Cincinnati, they experienced the poverty and struggles of many newly arrived immigrants. Their first residence was a 1-room apartment at Main and Canal Streets. With the help of friends, Francesco operated a fruit stand at Front and Sycamore Streets. Within a few years, he was able to open a confectionery store, and the family purchased a home on West 5th Street. Giovanna cared for the home and looked after the growing family. The young Maria Rosa attended the Sisters of Notre Dame School on East 6th Street and was taught by the Sisters of Mercy at Hughes Intermediate School, before enrolling at Mount St. Vincent Academy, Cedar Grove in Price Hill. Here she received a certificate for completion of the music course, and here she first met the Sisters of Charity. She observed their work among the sick and orphans, heard their stories of Civil War nursing, and witnessed the departure of 4 sisters sent to open a hospital and orphan asylum in the frontier town of Santa Fe, New Mexico. While a student at Mount St. Vincent, Maria Rosa met Mrs. Sarah Peter, who had a great interest in assisting the Italians of Cincinnati. Mrs. Peter, recognizing the young student as an Italian, encouraged her to open a catechetical class for the children. Responding to this suggestion, Maria Rosa and her older sister, Maria Maddalena, started a Sunday school in the basement of the cathedral and labored among the Italians.
Years later, Sister Blandina reminisced with her sister, asking, "Do you remember when in 1866 the cholera was raging in Cincinnati? You went to a drugstore to purchase a disinfectant. Half an hour afterwards, I entered the same place to make a like purchase. The clerk said to me, 'Your sister was here a short time ago and asked for a disinfectant. What's up?' I want this as a sort of preventive, for whenever I see a yellow flag, I'm going in to ascertain if I can be of any service." When we met, both of us had a hearty laugh over the fact that we were doing the same thing without each other's knowledge, and both had forgotten, after visiting a few patients, to use the disinfectant.
When Maria Rosa graduated from Mount St. Vincent in 1866 at the age of 16, she joined the Sisters of Charity and became Sister Blandina. Her beloved older sister, Maria Maddalena, followed soon after and became Sister Justina. Together they lived the Sisters of Charity motto, "The charity of Christ urges us," an expression Sister Blandina reportedly used frequently. As Sisters of Charity, they saw themselves as carriers of the vision of St. Vincent de Paul, their patron, and St. Elizabeth Seton, their founder, who inspired them with her vision.
"To speak the joy of my soul at the prospect of being able to assist the poor, visit the sick, comfort the sorrowful, clothe little innocents, and teach them to love God."
After spending several years teaching in Ohio, Sister Blandina requested that she be sent west, envying the sacrifices the sisters were making who were sent far away to do God's work. Fearless at age 22, more pleased at going alone than if I had a dozen with me, she traveled over the Santa Fe Trail in 1872. Destination, Trinidad in the Colorado Territory. She recorded her first impression in her journal.
I looked at what I would have thought were kennels for dogs. Fortified by her deep love of God and her personal motto, "Do what presents itself, and never omit anything because of hardship or repugnance," she was initiated into frontier life with all its adventures and dangers.
Joining 3 other sisters, she taught in the public school that had opened 2 years earlier. Joining 3 other sisters, she taught in the public school that had opened 2 years earlier. She described her classroom in the public school.
40 feet long, 14 feet wide, 8 feet high, 2 small windows, low-sized door, no transom, solid adobe walls on 2 sides, log rafters as black as ebony. Of necessity, ventilation said goodbye when the house was completed.
This intrepid pioneer had encounters with Billy the Kid, Geronimo, and frontier justice. Stories abound about how she dissuaded mobs of armed men from taking the law into their own hands and helped criminals seek forgiveness from their victims. She managed unruly students and formed a vigilant committee with them to assist in caring for the poor and needy of the area. She railed against injustices committed by the newly arrived Anglos against Native Americans and Mexicans, noting in her journal,
"Generations to come will blush for the deeds of this toward the rightful possessors of the soil. Our government, which poses with upraised finger of scorn on any act which savors of tyranny, lowers that finger to crush out of existence a race whose right to the land we call America is unquestioned.
Within a few years of her arrival, seeing the need for a new school building and the lack of funds to build it, she shared an idea.
"Here is my plan, sister," she recounted. "Borrow a crowbar, get on the roof of the schoolhouse, and begin to detach the adobes. The first good Mexican who sees me will ask, 'What are you doing, sister?' I will answer, 'Tumbling down this structure to rebuild it before the opening of the fall term.'"
Of course, it worked perfectly. Many people of the town donated their labor and skills, and soon they had a bigger and better schoolhouse. In early 1877, just as her sister, Sister Justina, was sent to Trinidad, Sister Blandina was missioned south to Santa Fe in the New Mexico Territory, where her remarkable activities continued in myriad ways. Working at St. Vincent's Hospital and Orphan Asylum, she took on helping at the old folks' home, assisting in direct relief for the poor, and building a trade school for Native American girls. Given the commission of preparing a musical program, she determined that it should be every bit as good as that offered at the Sisters of Loretto boarding school, which served wealthy families. Sister Blandina saw this as a way to enhance the growth in character formation in girls who have felt they possess nothing characteristically their own except the opprobrious name of charity girls. Noting that her orphans used every possible opportunity offered to them, Sister Blandina observed,
"They do everything with such enthusiasm that it acts as a stimulus upon me and makes me anxious to study each girl and give the utmost of myself to evoke the best in her."
Becoming known at every level of society, from members of the state legislature to indigent patients at St. Vincent's, Sister Blandina met every challenge. One account describes how they needed a coffin room at the hospital because the sisters were the only ones who would bury indigent patients. She helped the carpenter to construct coffins and enlisted recuperating patients from the hospital as mourners. The funeral cortege consisted of ambulatory patients, usually amputees, work therapy, said Sister Blandina, who lifted the coffin onto a cart. One of the sisters drove, and all were pallbearers as they stumbled under the weight of the coffin to its final resting place in a lot behind Old St. Michael's College. For this service, the county commissioner reimbursed the sisters with a territorial warrant valued at $15. When they tried to redeem it, however, they were given only half the amount. The commissioner explained that times were hard, that in government fiscal prudence was necessary. Sister Blandina knew he would pocket the other half, and her reaction to injustice was always swift. So when the next patient died, she went to the commissioner and said,
"In 15 minutes, the corpse will be brought to your office. You can economize as you wish. Goodbye." She had walked about 40 steps when the commissioner's voice said, "Sister, we will allow you $15 for the burial of each poor patient."
To raise funds to support their ministries, she and a sister companion went on begging trips to mining and railroad camps all over the Southwest, enduring incredible danger and treacherous conditions. Sometimes they met hostility at the camps, but in many cases the sisters were welcomed by veterans of the Civil War who had been cared for by the sisters on the battlefields or in military hospitals. After spending 4 years in Santa Fe, Sister Blandina moved to Albuquerque. Her work continued in Old Town, where she taught at San Felipe School, established a homeless shelter and a wayfarer's house. She also founded St. Vincent Academy, a girls' boarding school that attracted students from all over the Southwest. In the process of her work, she championed the rights of Native Americans and attacked the issue of human trafficking, even facing the threat of death. The intrepid Sister Blandina returned to Ohio in 1893 and 4 years later was sent with Sister Justina to see if they could do anything for the poor Italian immigrants in the inner city of Cincinnati. Given $5 to go and explore the conditions, these two sisters founded and managed Santa Maria Institute, considered by many the first Catholic settlement house in the United States. As their work began, Sister Justina kept a series of 21 journals recording their experiences.
If it is God's work, she wrote, it will succeed despite opposition. If it is not His work, we do not want it to succeed. But it is manifestly His work, so we do not fear, though we have nothing to begin with.
Starting out in donated space at 3rd and Lytle Streets, they later moved to rental space on West 7th Street. Desperately needing a larger facility, Sister Justina wrote,
"We found a penny on the street, so that is the nucleus of our funds for the purchase of a house. A penny and 2 sisters are nothing. A penny, 2 sisters, and God are omnipotent."
In 1912, 15 years after they started, they were finally able to purchase buildings on West 8th Street that provided space for the burgeoning list of programs and activities they were sponsoring. Another nearly 15 years would pass before they were able to move again, this time in 1926 to 12th and Republic. Enlisting assistance from numerous sources, these two women established services of every description to assist the poor and needy. The extent of their activities is more than impressive. Elementary schools, Sunday school classes, a day nursery, a kindergarten, a milk station, Boy and Girl Scout troops, centers for housing for homeless girls and women, Americanization centers, distribution of food, clothing, and books, an employment bureau, classes in homemaking, sewing, singing, dramatics, English, and Braille, and an exhaustive record of visits to family homes. When Catholic Charities was being organized, the officials made tours of institutions to evaluate their qualifications for funds. The visitor to Santa Maria asked to inspect the books.
At which point, Sister Blandina pulled out a little old leather purse from deep inside her pocket. Opening each of the 4 compartments, she explained that the first was for rent money, the second for food, the third for clothing, and the 4th for emergency needs.
Needless to say, she received suggestions about better bookkeeping methods. As they visited the jails and charity wards of the hospitals, Sister Blandina again became involved in the issue of human trafficking and juvenile delinquency. In her book celebrating the 25th anniversary of the founding of Santa Maria, Anna Minogue observed, "There is not in Cincinnati any organization that has expended stronger efforts for the overthrow of commercialized vice than the Santa Maria Institute." She relates how the sisters centered an amount of attention upon Ward O in the old city hospital, where girls and women of the underworld were sequestered. On one visit, one of the inmates berated Sister Blandina, saying,
"You come here trying to help these girls and women when they are past help. Why don't you instead give your time and effort toward keeping them from getting into these resorts? Why don't you put the agents of the resorts out of commission?"
After the woman told Sister Blandina her own tragic story of being recruited from a small town with the promise of a job and finding herself forced into a house of prostitution, Sister Blandina responded by confronting the madam who operated the house on George Street. The madam called in the aid of an all too willing press, and the following day a headline in the paper read,
"Woman dressed in garb of Sisters of Charity visited keeper of resort and charged her with causing moral destruction of young girls. Detective detail to investigate queer story."
Due to the notoriety generated by this incident, Sister Blandina's superiors requested that she do nothing more in the matter. Her actions, however, had spurred others into action, and soon individuals and organizations took up the issue. As their work grew, the sisters kept abreast of the latest trends in social work and kept meticulous records so they could best serve their patrons. They became part of networks of organizations serving the poor and trained social workers who joined them in their work. In later years, they even opened a social work school at Santa Maria. When the immigrant community spread from downtown to other parts of the city, Santa Maria opened branch offices at the Kenton Welfare Center in Walnut Hills and at San Antonio in South Fairmount. Interviews with some of the people Sister Blandina served paint a vivid picture of their outreach.
We belonged to St. Anthony Church when Sister opened it on Queen City Avenue. Every Saturday we would sit on the church steps waiting for Sister Blandina and Justina. We used to help them clean the church, and when we were finished, she gave us a card. We saved those cards for Christmas because she would take us down to Santa Maria, and we got our toys with those cards. At Santa Maria, I got twin dolls with my ticket. That is the only toy I ever had in my life. I used to carry them under my arms, under my coat.
Sister Blandina had a lot of spice to her. We all loved her. She had a good sense of humor. She was the organizer. She was really something else. She'd say jump, and you'd say how far. She was a little more strict than the others, more demanding. She didn't want you to get out of hand, and you minded her.
The sisters, all of them, used to take us in the automobiles to Coney Island one day in the summer. They got Vitt and Sturmer's funeral directors to donate cars for transportation. They did everything they could for us.
Sister helped pay for our books and tuition at St. Bonaventure's school. She was the one who kept us in school. She took care of everything. To me, she was a saint. Sister Blandina loved kids. She took care of all the kids. In 1931, 2 years before her retirement, Sister Blandina traveled to Rome thanks to the generosity of her former students. Prophetically, Alfred Segale, a Cincinnati Post journalist, wrote,
Sister Blandina starts back to Italy Sunday after 77 years. 4 years old when she left her native land, at 81 she returns. She is going to see the Pope about placing Mother Elizabeth Seton among the saints. But people say that Sister Blandina is saint enough herself, canonized by 60 years of faithful doing.
During this trip, she had the opportunity to return to Chicanya, her birthplace, never dreaming that 67 years later, the town square would be dedicated to her. At age 83, Sister Blandina retired to Mount St. Joseph. Here she prayed and maintained a lively correspondence and visits with her many friends and acquaintances. Sisters who cared for her remember her as loving, kind, thankful, and unassuming, and that she loved to listen to Italian opera on the radio. Just 1 month after celebrating her 91st birthday, Sister Blandina died, February 23, 1941. It was said that she had instructed 80% of the Italian population who came to Cincinnati. In early 2014, the Archdiocese of Santa Fe petitioned Rome to open the cause for the canonization of Sister Blandina. In June, the Vatican accepted the petition. She was declared a servant of God, the first step in the process of being named a saint by the Catholic Church. And so the story continues.
Death Valley Days.
Gilmer,
Yeah, boss.
you go order the supplies. Remember, business been bad. Lots of these people are broke. They offer half price. Show 'em gold. Most of them need it so bad they'll take it.
All right, boss.
Ed, you go with Gilmer. Watch good foreman work. Maybe you surprise me and learn something. You need me, I'll be in Doc Archer's.
First thing I gotta do is go get my saddle fixed.
Well, let's get a drink first.
No, you go ahead. It's too early for me.
Where's your brother?
Huh?
I'll kill him.
Better not try it, Collins. He's sober.
Where is he?
All right, go ahead. He's over with Doc Archer.
Gilmer? I'm gonna kill Burnett. Don't try to stop me.
Well, now, I'm his foreman, not his bodyguard.
He robbed me.
Seems to me he offered you a price for your stock, Collins, and you took it.
He got me drunk.
Well, now, you go around killing everybody in Colorado that ever got you drunk. There ain't gonna be many folks left.
You think it's funny?
No, I don't think it's funny.
Yes, you do. You hate me, too.
Pete, I haven't got any time to argue.
Drop that saddle and draw.
Pete, you're drunk. Now go sleep it off someplace.
You shot Gilmer. And there he goes on your brother's horse. Looks like Gilmer's still alive. Pete Collins shot Gilmer. It wasn't my fault, George. I wasn't here.
Stop whining. Clyde, carry him inside to the dock. You go find Collins. Don't come back here until you do if you want to keep that badge.
Don't worry, Mr. Burnett. I'll bring him back.
You stay here. I'm going inside. Gilmer dies, I'm going to hang Collins myself.
Trinidad, Colorado territory. You folks just take all the time you want eating in that cafe. We'll get that axle fixed. Okay, Harry. Sister Blandina?
Now, Mr. Shelby, don't you try to frighten me again with any of your stories.
All right, but you just remember, you ain't home in Cincinnati.
Oh, nothing can happen to me here. You see, in Spanish, Trinidad means City of the Holy Trinity. Where could I be safer? Oh, you should have faith.
And you should have some advice, which I'm going to give you.
All right.
Now, in a little while, that stage will be coming in here from Denver. And as soon as we transfer their Santa Fe passengers and their freight, they just head right on out. Now, I wish you'd get a seat on that stage.
But I'm going to Santa Fe.
But why? It's even wilder than this place. There's no place for a fit and proper young lady. Couldn't you be a missionary and a teacher back in Denver or some other civilized place?
But that's why the Lord sent me here, to try to help bring civilization.
Hey, where are you? Get over here.
That there's the cheapest, meanest man I ever rode for. George Burnett. He'd kill you for $1.
I told you to stay here. I pay you to do what I say.
Well, George, it's been over 2 hours. The sheriff's got Collins in jail, and, well, I thought I'd buy a drink.
I'll talk, you listen.
Okay, George.
All right, now. Collins' shell was loaded with tin shot. Doc doesn't think he can save Gilmer. You ride home, get 4 or 5 men, get a long rope.
Sister, I reckon you better get on into the cafe.
But, Mr. Shelby, I'm not hungry.
Well, now, you just can't stand around out here in the street because there's going to be trouble. You heard Burnett tell his brother to go fetch a long rope. There's going to be a lynching.
But that can't be. Lynching is against the law.
I told you, you ain't back home in Cincinnati. This is Trinidad, and it ain't even on any map.
And it never will be until people obey the law.
Well, then you tell all them people, don't tell me. And especially him yonder over in front of the jail. That's the new sheriff.
Why, Mr. Burnett's going over to see him.
Most likely to give him his orders.
Oh, no. Oh, I'm sure the sheriff would never allow anyone to be lynched. I've read about Western sheriffs, and they're brave, honest men. In fact, I've always wanted to meet one.
But, Sister Blandina...
If Gilmer dies, we're coming for Pete Collins. Don't try to stop us.
Mr. Burnett?
How'd you know my name?
Well, that's not important, sir. What is important is that you cleanse your heart of hatred for this poor man. Remember the words of the Lord? If thine enemy hungers, feed him.
That's just what I intend to do to Pete Collins. Feed him to the worms.
I'm afraid I made him angry.
He wakes up angry.
Pardon me, sir, for saying this, but he'll never have any respect for the law if you let him talk to you the way he did.
Sister, once over in New Mexico, I tried being a real sheriff. It cost me my badge. Now I'm older. I lose this job, I'm not likely to find a new one. So I ain't losing it. Sister, please. Maybe I don't like this any more than you do.
Of course you don't. That's why you can't let him do such a terrible thing.
I don't know who you think I am, but I can't stop him.
Why, just a few minutes ago, you told me about being strong and brave in New Mexico. And once a man has those qualities, they're part of his character all his life. You're still strong and brave.
But not stupid. Sister, don't waste your time. Not on a rum-soaked bum like Pete Collins.
All men are children of the Lord.
Not Pete Collins. Come on, I'll show you. You got a visitor.
Hello. I'm Sister Blandina, the Sisters of Charity of Cincinnati.
You bring any whiskey?
No.
Then get out.
Now you believe me? Come on.
I'll stay a few minutes.
I'll leave the door unlocked.
Thank you. Mr. Collins, you're in great danger, but the good Lord willing, maybe I can help you.
Why?
Because true religion cannot exist without true justice.
If you're looking for justice, you should come to the wrong place.
I'll try to help you get justice if you'll let me. Now, I don't know if my plan will work.
Under that robe, you could smuggle a gun in here.
No.
Thought you wanted to help me.
Help you get justice, not commit another crime. Now, please listen to me, Mr. Collins. Every minute's important because my plan will only work while Mr. Gilmer's still alive.
Shelby. You like your old job back?
Gilmer dead?
Might as well be. Even if he lives, he'll never ride again.
Oh, poor guy.
Poor guy, what about me? You know what it cost me to break in a new foreman?
Well, now, I reckon you'll find some way to take it out of his pay.
Not if you come back. You know my tricks.
Not all of them. I thought you was keen on hanging Pete Collins because he shot your foreman. I clean forgot how much money it was costing you.
I got another reason.
Besides money.
Yeah. Hanging Collins right here in town will let people know that whether we got new sheriff or not, George Burnett is still the law in Trinidad.
Sheriff, is Fred Gilmer still alive?
He must be here. They'd have been here by now.
Oh, the blessed Lord is giving us time.
What for?
To work together and stop Mr. Burnett.
It ain't only Burnett, it's him and the others. I can't stop a mob. I'm only one man.
One man from Nazareth faced a mob.
And he died. I want to live.
But the Lord decides how long each of us is to live. We can decide how we live. I'm going to see Mr. Gilmer.
Gilmer? What for?
That's part of my plan. If Mr. Burnett and his men don't break in here, what will happen to Mr. Collins?
He'll go on trial.
Where?
Here. Judge Hallett, the circuit judge, is due in today on the stage from Denver.
Splendid.
Splendid. He holds court over at the hotel. That's where Burnett and his men are. How am I going to get him over there?
Well, I'm sure you'll find a way.
Oh, no, I won't. You're looking for a hero. Well, there ain't any around. It's time you started facing facts, especially a great big fat fact like this. Nobody in Trinidad's ever stopped a lynch mob.
Then I must say it's high time someone did.
Boss wants you in town for a necktie party.
Sister Blandina, we got that axle fixed, so as soon as that stage rolls in here from Denver, we'll be on our way to Santa Fe.
When will that be?
Anytime. They're due in any minute.
Well, I'll be ready. I just have to see Mr. Gilmer for a few minutes.
I think it might be a little late to see Mr. Gilmer.
To see Mr. Gilmer? Oh, dear Lord, no.
Sister Blandina, a little while ago, I seen Doc Archer. He was heading on over to the saloon to talk to Mr. Burnett, so...
But he can't be dead. He mustn't be.
Well, now, I ain't exactly...
Pray, Mr. Shelby. Pray that he's alive. I've got to talk to him. I studied nursing at the convent. Can I help you?
Doc, I'll be right back. Who are you?
Sister Blandina of the Sisters of Charity of Cincinnati.
I was born in Ohio.
Really?
I don't recall it much, so I come out here real young. My pa was a traveling preacher.
Oh, well, that's fine. That means you know the good book.
And not too good. Oh, my leg, it's all burning up. Full of poison. I got shot.
I know.
My pa, he used to talk about life after dying. Do you believe in that?
Of course. The soul is immortal.
No, I ain't talking about my soul. I'm talking about me. See, if I die, I want to come back here real quick. In time to see Pete Collins get hanged.
No, Mr. Gilmer, you mustn't feel that way. If the Lord takes you, be clean. Don't meet him with hatred in your heart. You see, Mr. Collins no longer hates you. He sent me to ask you to forgive him.
Forgive him?
Oh, you must.
Sister, I've been saving for years to buy me my own ranch. Finally, I get enough. I buy me a nice little spread up the valley. It's little, but it's big enough to feed me, my wife, my boys. Now, it looks like I ain't gonna live to see it. But if I don't live, then let him hang.
No, Mr. Gilmer.
Sister, I ain't the Lord. I can't love my enemies.
But lynching Mr. Collins won't wipe out his crime. He broke the law. Let the law punish him.
But maybe it won't. Maybe he'll get himself a smart lawyer.
No, he admits his guilt. He's writing a full confession right now.
The penalty for murder is hanging. What difference does it make who does the hanging?
Please, Mr. Gilmer, forgive him. Help make this a land ruled by law, by justice, not revenge. A land where the bounties of the Lord can turn this into a place where your children and But all his other children can live the days of their years without fear. Please, Mr. Gilmer, forgive him. Let the court decide his punishment.
On one condition.
Of course, anything.
I forgive him if he gives you the confession. And you guarantee he'll face the judge.
Bless you, Mr. Gilmer.
Now, you promise?
I promise. Excuse me, I must hurry.
Now put a noose on the end of it. This confession ain't gonna stop George Burnett, or there's many who's getting liquored up. Startled me, Tom.
Sort of, Sheriff. Sister Blandina, the stage is in from Denver. So as soon as we get the freight loaded up for Santa Fe, we roll.
Thank you, Mr. Shelby. The Denver stage. That means the judge is here.
I guess it does.
Go see him now before Mr. Gilmer dies. Take Mr. Collins.
Me take Collins to that hotel?
Isn't there a back road or some other way?
No. Don't do that, Tom.
I'm sorry, Sheriff. I plumb forgot to tell you before. Fred Gilmer died.
You must hurry now. Take Mr. Collins to the judge.
Sister, I told you I couldn't take Collins over there while Gilmer was alive. If I tried now, I wouldn't get 10 feet.
I would.
You? You wouldn't get 2 feet.
The Lord didn't bring me this far to have me fail. Bring Mr. Collins. I'll take him to the judge.
Come on. Here he is.
Thank you. Come along, Mr. Collins. We'll take your confession to the judge.
You're going with her.
Hey, wait a minute.
What is it?
Well, I ain't going out there alone with you. I seen Burnett's men come riding into town, and you know what they come for, to string me up.
Mr. Collins, the Lord will walk with us and keep us from harm.
No offense, ma'am, but I want somebody walking with us who's got a gun.
You're going with her.
But they'll kill us both.
No, they won't. But we must hurry. Every minute is important.
Well, sister, you don't know nothing about lynching mobs. Huh? You never seen one. But they smell blood and they go crazy. And that robe ain't gonna stop them. They'll hang us both.
Please, stop it. Now, I understand why you're afraid, but fear is like a disease, and I can't afford to catch it from you. Come along, Mr. Collins.
It's him.
And that nun.
Yeah, but why?
Let's find out.
We still have time. Let's go back.
No, Mr. Collins. Please come along.
Thanks for delivering him.
Please get out of our way, Mr. Burnett.
Not for him. He killed my foreman.
That's why I'm taking him to Judge Hallett. According to the law, he's entitled to a fair trial.
Fair trial? Is that what's bothering you? We'll give him a fair trial. Did you shoot Fred Gilmer?
Well...
Yes or no?
Yeah.
Then you're guilty and we're gonna hang you. Is that fair enough?
No, it isn't. Mr. Collins sent me to Mr. Gilmer to ask him to forgive him. And he did. On condition that I promise to see that Mr. Collins is tried in court. Now, I made that promise to Mr. Gilmer, and I mean to keep it. So please let us through. Mr. Burnett, I understand you think you're a rich man.
I know I'm rich.
How rich are you if there's no law? How much is your ranch worth and all your cattle if we don't live by law? Suppose your own brother kills you. If these men stay loyal to him and the law is weak, then it's his ranch and his cattle. Until somebody kills him.
I can take care of myself.
Not if there's no law and the other side shoots faster. But if the law is strong, it can take care of you far better than you can take care of yourself.
We're wasting time, miss. I want Collins and I'm taking him.
No, you're not.
Put that thing away, or don't you want that badge?
Not if I can get fired for doing my job. Go on, they'll let you through.
Come along, Mr. Collins.
Let them through! Come on.
Thank you, Sheriff Wheeler.
You're right back there at the jail. Fear is catching. This whole town's been afraid of George Burnett. I guess I caught it. Thank the Lord your courage is catching, too.
Sister Blandina! Sister Blandina! I'm looking all over for you. We're ready to roll on to Santa Fe.
Give me the confession. I'll take him the rest of the way.
I'm sure you will.
Sister Blandina, please.
Come on.
Sister Blandina's remarkable bravery put an end to lynch law in Trinidad. I'd like to tell you that her courage also saved Peter Collins and gave him the opportunity to turn over a new leaf. I'd like to tell you that, and I would if this were fiction. Collins, however, was found guilty and sent to the Territorial Penitentiary for life. Sister Blandina rode on from Trinidad and served for many years, not only in Santa Fe, but at many schools and missions throughout the West, including St. Vincent's Academy, which Sister Blandina actually built with the help of a single Navajo Indian, and which, as you see, still stands today in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Next week, another true story of the West.
Death Valley Days.
Trinidad, Colorado is today a modern city. But less than 100 years ago, it was a raw, new mining camp, not even on the map. When the Sisters of Charity chose a young nun, Sister Blandina, to go along to Trinidad, she thought she was being sent to an island in the Caribbean. Instead, she found herself in Colorado Territory at the end of the Santa Fe Trail and fulfilled her lonely mission in the midst of violence and sudden death. We call our true story about her Lost Sheep in Trinidad.
Marshal. Marshal didn't need to get himself killed for this. I'd have taken my loss. I'd have let those two ride out scot-free sooner than in any way be responsible. What's the matter, sister?
Oh, he's just a boy. Help me get him inside.
That's no boy. That's a dirty little murderer. Take him over and lock him up and watch him.
And watch him bleed to death? Somebody get him a doctor.
He doesn't deserve a doctor. His kind belong in a cage. No respect for man or God or woman.
God made him.
Who are you?
I'm Sister Blandina.
One of them, huh?
Yes, one of them. I'm a sister of charity. I'm from the East, Ohio.
Where's my gun?
It's over here on the wall. Here, drink this. You've lost a lot of blood. You'd better lie still. Good morning, Mr. Starrett.
Sister, I see you're still alive.
Just barely. I had hoped you'd bring a doctor.
I never said I would.
I know. But I've become used to depending upon you, Mr. Starrett.
I've tried to be a help, sister. And I'm still trying, in spite of you. I'll do anything I can to make Trinidad a good place for folks to settle in. A fit place for you to teach school in.
With 4 doctors in this town...
The doctors are a little too busy to take on any new patients.
You mean too busy to bother about a boy who'll die if they don't?
The sooner he does, the better for all concerned, including you, sister.
I would rather not believe you mean that the way it sounds.
You don't realize the kind of country you're in.
I've lived here 7 years.
You've still got a lot to learn, sister. Here. Take a look at this. He's part of the gang that's been running wild with Billy the Kid. You still think there's a lot of good in everybody if you could just get at it? Well, that just isn't so, sister. Not here in the territory. You know what your poor little boy did to me? He pistol whipped me. I stood there with my hands down. No gun. Never wore a gun in my life. And he came at me like a mad dog. That's all he is. You're giving house room to a mad dog. Look out, sister.
Hey, Fat. Get out from behind her.
Put down that gun.
You shut up your mouth and move. Don't. It don't mean nothing to me.
Put down that gun. You might as well. I've taken the bullets out of it.
You're lying to protect that fat loudmouth.
I'm not allowed to lie.
Drop it. You hear me? Drop it!
Help me get him back to bed.
He's going out of here, sister. Walk or be dragged, that's up to him.
No, Mr. Starrett.
He would have killed you if he could.
Any trapped animal sees enemies all around.
For the last time, sister, listen to me. The way things are, nobody wants the marshal's job. It'll take a week for the sheriff to get here.
And there's a lot of talk in town about why wait.
Do you want a lynching in Trinidad?
You know me better than that.
I hope I do, Mr. Starrett.
I've been pretty reliable so far. Anything you needed.
It's not what I need now.
What you need is him off your hands and under lock and key. I'll take the responsibility.
I'm afraid you can't.
Oh, for heaven's sake, sister.
There is that, isn't there? Good morning. Good morning. I'm sorry there's no school today. But you won't mind a little vacation, will you? Elsie? Mary? Dr. Evans, we've never met, but I've seen you and your wife from a distance and have meant to come and call on you and welcome you to Trinidad. I'm Sister Blandina.
Glad to know you, sister. I'm sorry that I don't have time to stop and talk. Unfortunately, I can't stop now. I have to drive over east and see some patients. I ought to be there now. I may be gone several days.
Well, I'm glad to know that your practice is prospering so rapidly. Can't you spare just a minute?
You'll have to excuse me, sister.
Well, sister?
Well, Mr. Starrett?
I gave you fair warning.
Yes, you did. I've never seen so many men taking time off from their work and walking around with guns.
And there are more of them than you can see.
All because I gave house room to a mad dog who can't even walk?
We're kind of expecting a visit from a friend of his. We figured that Billy the Kid might come and try to get him out.
So you're using him as bait for a trap?
That's one way of putting it. Of course, his friend might not even show up.
Meanwhile, the boy may die.
For the last time, sister, he's no boy.
His mother called him Joey. Little Joey.
What?
Nothing, Mr. Starrett.
That's good.
It's all right.
Yeah. Oh. Hey, more. What's it for?
It's all right.
Mom. It's you.
Go back to sleep.
I'm scared to sleep. Might not wake up.
I'll be right here.
Why? Why are you fussing over me?
Because your mother isn't here.
She don't even know where I am. She wouldn't care none if she did.
Oh, yes, she would.
No. No, she wouldn't. You know why I left Montana? I killed a man. He put me down in front of people and I stole a gun and I killed him with it. I tell you, if everybody could see me do it.
Don't talk anymore.
Talk anytime I feel like it.
You'll start the bleeding.
Said you're gonna get me a doctor.
I tried.
You tried. I'll bet you tried. What do you care what happens to me?
I care very much, Joey.
Don't you call me that.
I didn't mean to. I won't again.
You ain't no friend of mine. You're just doing what you have to do to get to heaven. Heaven. You know what Billy says? He says, I'm headed straight for hell. And I'll take along as many as I can. I'll count on Mexicans and Indians to wait on me when I get there. Yeah, that's what Billy says. You know what he'll do to them no good doctors wouldn't lift a hand to help a friend of his. He'll kill them. He'll hear. And he'll come and he'll cut them down. 1, 2, 3, 4. He'll cut them down. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hi, sister.
Good morning.
You say that like you meant it. Like it's gonna be a good day.
All days are good in the morning. It's what we do with them that makes the difference.
Yeah. I guess you're right. I guess you are.
Would you like some tea?
Sooner have some coffee.
I'm sorry.
Hard up, huh? Yeah, we're hard up at home. Do without this, do without that. I quit school soon and go with patches on my britches. I can manage. Sure warms you up. I don't feel bad as I did yesterday.
Good.
Maybe I don't need a doctor. Maybe time Billy comes, I'll be ready to mountain ride. Funny he don't come. He'd hear about me, sure. Ain't nothing in the territory he don't hear about. All right, I'll just rest up here a spell.
That's right. Rest. Don't worry.
Ain't nothing to worry about as soon as Billy gets here. Sister, I've been thinking about things. I don't write none too good. Would you write a letter for me?
To your mother?
Yeah. How'd you know?
I just guessed.
You sure are smart. I ain't wrote her since I run away to be a big man. That's 3 years nearly. What have you done?
I'm gonna go get a pen and some paper.
Hold it. Sorry I scared you, sister.
Billy the Kid.
That's right, sister.
William Bonney. 20 years old, and you've already killed 21 men. The first when you were only 13?
I didn't know nuns kept score on me now.
It's all on the wanted sheets. Wanted, dead or alive. Your friend was sure you'd come for him.
All right, so I'm here now. You just step out of the way.
He's tried so hard to be just like you.
He's done pretty good at it.
2 lost sheep.
I'm no lost sheep, sister. I know right where I'm going, and I'll get there.
We both know where you're going. To the end of a road that only leads one way. What happened to the boy you could have been, Billy? The boy he was?
What do you mean, was? Wake up, Joe. Hey, Joe, wake up. Come on, Joe, wake up. He's dead.
He wanted me to write a letter for him to his mother. There wasn't time enough.
You kept me outside preaching at me?
Carried his load as far as he could.
Shut up. 4 doctors in this town. Not one of them raised a hand.
He told me you'd kill them all. 1, 2, 3, 4. But you won't.
I don't see any gun on you to stop me. That black dress doesn't mean a thing to me.
What does, Billy? Killing? Killing until you're killed? Driving other people to murder to stop you from murdering? Every able-bodied man in Trinidad is out there waiting for you, armed and ready.
You're lying.
I told your friend I'm not allowed to lie. They counted on you coming for him.
Why'd you tell me?
Because you're Billy the Kid. You might kill and get away like you have before.
You're the only one who ever did anything to help him. Put it in a collection plate. Tell me there's dirt on it because I'm Billy the Kid.
There's blood on it.
Just say a prayer over it, sister. Wash it white as snow. What kind of nun are you? You won't take my money, but you wouldn't let me go out there and maybe get my head blown off. And you tended Joe like he was your son. Sounds like you got company coming, like you just kept me hooked here till they came.
Sister Blandina.
Go on, open it.
Sister Blandina.
I said go and open it. Go on, let him in.
What took you so long, sister?
I was busy.
We thought maybe something had happened.
Something has happened, Doctor. He died just a moment ago.
I should have been here. Could have been here. I lied to you, sister. I didn't have any patience to drive over east to see. I just...
Doc came by to see me. We talked about it. Then we talked to some of the people in town. We found that they feel the same way we do. We all just got too worked up. We meant well, sister, but... Well, anyhow, it's all calmed down and everybody's gone home and put their guns away. Like I said before, Doc, we should have known that Billy the Kid wouldn't bother himself about one mad dog when the woods are full of them. I know you feel bad about him, sister. But after all, he is better off.
Yes, he's better off.
Well, I guess that covers everything. Where'd that money come from?
It belonged to him.
You mean he stole it? Probably killed to get it. Well, it'll pay for burying him. Just a minute, Doc. Sister, what I said to you before about not helping out anymore like I have in the past, that was just talk. Anything you want me to do, anytime, just let me know and I'll be there.
Thank you, Mr. Starrett. I always like the altar candles this time of day.
You're too tough for me, sister. I'll stay out of your town from now on. So long, sister.
Goodbye, Billy.
Sister, when you say your prayers, maybe you could just mention Bill the Kid.
I will, Billy.
Billy the Kid had 2 more years to live before Pat Garrett killed him. Sister Blandina never forgot him. She built a school and an orphan's home, a hospital in Santa Fe, and another school in Albuquerque, which stands today. In 1894, she returned to Ohio and was still doing her best to help and guide young people when, at 91, she died. One more chapter in Western history that should never be forgotten.
Be so kind to forgive me if I forget some words, because in my internal clock, this clock, this hour. If you ask, many people have asked me when this history, my history with Sister Blandina began. I have to say that my history began when I began reading, perhaps, because I think that a learned woman, a learned people, is learned because he or she has tried to learn as much as possible from the experiences of the person, of our fellow creatures. But we can find our fellow creatures in our family, in our neighborhoods, but also on books. So I started reading because I tried to find examples. I have to say that I have always found easier to face difficulties in life trying to remember examples of those who, in our families or outside in books too, faced the same difficulties and succeeded in overcoming them. So this is a learned man. When culture becomes a part of you, and you are ready to use your experience, the other experiences, to strengthen your strength. So one day I was studying Women in the West. There was a famous movie many years ago with the title How the West Was Won. I prefer to investigate how women won the West, because I was sure that and not only because in 1869 women obtained the vote for the first time in the history of mankind in Wyoming, but also because I am sure, and I have my husband here, so I have to be very clear behind, and I am very grateful to him because he took me here. And behind a very important man, Roland, I think you can agree, there is a very great woman. Yes. So I began investigating among the women in the West, and it was very interesting. I was not looking for a sugary history. I'm looking for truth. But I was looking for new experiences in a world so different, so distant from mine, just to find new points of strength. And I found a lot of them following the traces of those women. Also unconventional ones, I have to say. Why unconventional? Because in the 19th century, it was conventional for a woman not to speak in certain moments among men, for instance, because this was the tradition, and the tradition was to be followed. And so I don't like that kind of obedience to traditions, to conventions. I preferred women who didn't speak thinking to wait for the right moment and the right words to speak and to be accepted. And I was sure that, for instance, those women who succeeded in having the vote for the first time in the history of mankind were able to wait for the right moment with the right people and the right words. Then, all of a sudden, I met Sister Blandina. A few lines in a book on cowboys written by a German author, Stammel, and few lines on this nun coming from Italy. Now, I have to go back. Of course, the experiences that for a learned woman are very important, but the most important ones are those who come from our families. So in several moments of my life, I had to repeat to myself, your mother faced the same adversities. She succeeded, and you have to follow her path. And this is what I want to give to my children, an example. So it was very, very nice to discover that an Italian woman had done those things. It was not mere nationalism. No, it was a sort of pride, but a pride full of love. Because, of course, it was easier for me to understand Sister Blandina, as I felt that this Sister Blandina belonged to a word that I knew very well. So I went on looking for Sister Blandina. It was not easy at all, because on the book there were no news about Sister Blandina's birthplace, for instance. For a lot of time, I fought against silence, trying to see if I was able to find the order of the sisters of Sister Blandina. I wrote in a lot of places. I wrote to Albuquerque, to Santa Fe, no answers at all. It was a long, long way to Tipperary, a long way to Sister Blandina. So, then I, following a path, I discovered that she had written a diary, and that the diary had been published in Milwaukee. So I remember that in Italy there is a law. If you publish a book, you are obliged to send a copy of the book to the local public library. I hoped this law was common to the USA, and so I wrote to Milwaukee Public Library. But just in the same days, I discovered that Sister Blandina belonged to the order founded by Saint Seton. Saint Seton belongs to my people. Because I was born in Leghorn, in Livorno. And Mother Seton was converted to the Catholic religion by a Livornese. That's a man from Livorno, that is Count Filippi. And I read on the newspapers that a church was to be entitled to Santa Seton. I wrote to the priest asking him to give a letter asking news about Sister Blandina to the daughters of, not the sisters, the daughters of charity coming from America for the dedication of the church. Then, at the last moment, I took my car and I drove to Livorno, and I forgot a copy of the letter, but I was so sure that the priest had his own copy that I was not so. I arrived there. I tried to reach in the crowd the daughters. I succeeded in finding one. I explained to her that there was a letter in the parish asking for news about Sister Blandina. She didn't know anything about Sister Blandina, but she promised me to write. And her letter arrived just the same days I was able to write to Milwaukee Public Library. The book arrived. The book arrived through, because I gave, through the university public library. But I was told that I had only one night to study the book. So I spent the night copying in my husband's office the book all of a sudden. Then I followed one thought, then I had to copy the other page. So I had to go on, but at the end of the morning I was crying, not because I was tired. I was moved to tears and I was crying, but I was so happy because I had a copy of the book in my hand. And in the morning I went back to the university library and I gave the book back. So I began discovering Sister Blandina. I have to say that I had a sort of here in my throat when I saw for the first time Sister Blandina's face. Because it was like meeting a very old friend of mine, even if I discovered that the few lines written on Sister Blandina by the German author were not true. Because he wrote about an attack of the Apache Indians to a village, and Sister Blandina, who offered herself to the Apache chief, trying to send him back, the chief went back and Sister Blandina failed. When I read the book, I understood immediately that Sister Blandina was not the kind of woman who was so easy to fail. And to fail, not to fail, to fail. Thank you very much, you have to help me at least. So, I went on reading, then I discovered Chicania. I immediately went with my husband and my children to Chicania, to discover Chicania, because I was born in Leghorn, as I've already told you, and now, at the moment, we lived in Geneva, as now we are. The priest of Chicania didn't know anything about Sister Blandina, but he was very kind because he allowed us to enter the archives. And so it was possible to discover not only the certificates of Sister Blandina, but also of the other members of the family. Then I began speaking about Sister Blandina anywhere, wherever possible. But just think that when I phoned the priest and I asked him, are you interested in having a lecture on Sister Blandina? No, you know, nuns. Who can be interested in nuns? Me. I was interested in nuns. So I began speaking about Sister Blandina anywhere. And of course, the boys ran. And so I was called in a lot of places. And I began dreaming about a translation of the book. But I found closed gates. After a period, after almost 6 years, just coming back from a lecture, I was told that on Reader's Digest there was an article on the translation of Sister Blandina's book. And I had to confess to Nancy, and Nancy understood me quite well, that I felt jealousy towards the two young students that were translating Sister Blandina's book. I had to confess, a moment, just a moment, but it was. And then I thought, you had found closed gates. You have not been able to obtain editors for the translation. Sister Blandina had chosen younger supporters. So we have to say that the only important thing was to spread the knowledge of Sister Blandina. It was not my name or the name of others. They were younger, so everything was all right. In 1996, the translation of Sister Blandina's book appeared in Liguria, and immediately on the most important newspaper in Genova, an article appeared on this translation. But one of the men who had followed one of my lectures phoned the newspaper and told them that there was also a woman in Genova called Donatella Ruggero who was able to describe not only what Sister Blandina had done in the Southwest, but also what Sister Blandina had done in Cincinnati. Because immediately after discovering Sisters of Charity, through the Daughters of Charity, who sent me the address, your address, Mount St. Joe, I wrote to you and I received some clippings, pieces of newspapers. And so I was able to speak about what Sister Blandina had done in Cincinnati after coming back from the Southwest. The journalist was very interested in knowing that there was a woman named Donatella who was able to tell her something, because the first article appeared on Genova's newspaper had made a lot of interest in the town. So I was interviewed. And while in the first article there was a photo of Carla Casagrande, the director of Chicagna Public Library, in the second article there was my photo. And so we, Carla and I, knew our faces, saw our faces for the first time. Carla immediately phoned me. She was fond of Sister Blandina. She had been conquered by Sister Blandina. She wanted to know something more about Sister Blandina, but she doesn't know English. She's studying English at the moment. And so she asked me what we could do to widespread Sister Blandina fame. And at the moment I was rather surprised and I told her that perhaps we could go on with our studies on the success, on the, not the success, the descendants, with the forefathers of Sister Blandina. And we, happily, I had the copy of 1947 with the preface of Sister Martin, which was a fabulous spring of pieces of news, because it was possible to recreate the family. Having these chapters, we were able to follow, to discover, for instance, Carla was allowed to discover that Francesco and Giovanna Segale, the parents of Sister Blandina, were from Montegrifo, that is a very small village near Chicagna. And this was very interesting because, as I showed to the descendants of Sister Blandina, of the family of Sister Blandina, there is a reference to a shrine, the shrine of Montallegro. Now pay attention. Chicagna has its own shrine, the Madonna dei Miracoli, that is the Holy Mother of the Miracles. But in Sister Martin's preface, it was written that Giovanna, Sister Blandina's mother, had offered Sister Blandina to another shrine. Why? Strange indeed. The shrine of Chicagna is downtown Chicagna. The other shrine is on the top of a hill, and is the shrine of Montallegro. The piece of news was to be absolutely true because Sister Martin mentioned a very particular painting, as narrow as this, very, very narrow, coming from the Adriatic coast, from Yugoslavia, you know, representing the Dormition of the Virgin. So, this referring to the Dormition of the Virgin gave us the proof that the referring was authentic. But why Montalero shy? So Carla understood that somebody in Sister Blandina's family was to be not of Chicagna, but to another small village of Valfontana Buona, because the other small villages of Valfontana Buona offer their children, according to tradition, to Montalero. So she began looking around in the parish's archives. It was a very, very long job, but at the end she succeeded in finding the baptismal certificates of Sister Blandina's father and of the first born to the family of Sister Blandina. We went on. There was a young man who was the director of a small literary society who wanted to write, who had discovered that an Indian poet, a Pulitzer Prize winner, had written some poems dedicated to Sister Blandina. Massimo Morasso, the president of this Società Letteraria Rapallo, that is Rapallo, which is a rather important town near Chicagna, literary society, didn't know anything about Sister Blandina and wondered who this Sister Blandina was. But when he read on the newspaper Sister Blandina, he immediately understood that Sister Blandina was one of the local, of the indigenous population. So he asked Carla and me to publish a small booklet on Sister Blandina, the life of Sister Blandina, and the poems of the Indian poet. There was a conference in Chicagna. The mayor was so happy, he supported us, and this conference was so full of people that we decided to go on with our plans. And we wrote to you. We wrote to you another letter asking for the names of some descendants. Because the first time you had sent us a piece of a newspaper, an article, on Sister Blandina's funeral. And there were some names at the end. Sister Blandina lives. Mrs. Schirmoller, Georgia Schirmoller, Mrs. Henry, no, I don't remember the name at the moment. It's not due to my age, it's due to my childhood, I don't remember. Harry Wagers, and then Winfield Cordano. And her niece, Winfield Cordano. Looking at Winfield Cordano, Carla immediately understood that one of the sisters of Sister Blandina was to have married a man coming from the same place, because Cordano is a family name very important in the valley. So it was very exciting to look for new relatives. And we wrote a lot of letters, and a few moments before Carla closed the public library, there was a letter full of sympathy, of love, of Roland, who signed it. More to follow. I'm ready to give you all the help you need. Now I have to reveal a sort of secret, a family secret. Immediately after this letter, poor Roland didn't know what he had said, affirming, more to follow, I'm ready to help you. We flooded him with pages and pages and pages and pages, asking a lot of questions. So he immediately passed the letter to Nancy. He was scared to death, even if I'm sure that same white hair, same glasses, same. So immediately we felt on the same length. And we immediately began exchanging letters. Try to imagine when she discovered email. No stop to our letters. So we began recreating the past. But please, I must underline that we wanted to recreate the past only to find new links and new, how can I say, new springs of happiness and pride. Because, of course, our relatives, we love our relatives in every moment of their lives. So perhaps, even if some details were not according to what we have thought of Sister Blandina's family, it was no problem to us to accept them. For instance, Sister Blandina's father was known as Il Signorino, signed with a cross. It was an illiterate, and he was considered an illiterate. And this that could be considered a sort of diminishing detail was, on the contrary, to us, increasing his greatness, because an illiterate man who had the courage to leave his country and to fight for the future of his children was a man more and more to be proud of than a literate and learned man. Because, of course, she had the courage to change his destiny. In the Latins, you know, are always famous because they concentrate in a few words, many sentences. But the Latin formula, a man must be the smith of his own fortune, homo faber fortunae suae. This is a Latin formula that describes quite well what Francesco had done for his family, and Giovanna with him. So, even if the detail of Il Signorino was not perfectly respected, the detail that he was an illiterate man, and that he had the courage to leave his country, and to leave his country was actually a very important event, because when you have your roots, it's difficult to leave the country and to face adversities in a country so far, so distant, that you don't know. But Francesco and Giovanna had this courage. And so this was another detail which increased the image that we had of these men. We discovered a lot of things. We discovered how Sister Blandina was linked to her family in one oh, thank you. For instance, in an article which I sent it to you, an article I found that Sister Blandina was not linked to her family. It was not true, absolutely. And I have to thank the archivist of this convent, the responsible of the archives, because I obtained 2 letters in the last years of Sister Blandina about her brother Charles. Now, we know that Charles was a very alive man, but no matter what was the matter was that Sister Blandina, in the last moments of her life, tried to ask Charles to repent for his sins. And with a strength of love, sure that her love was able, I have tried to describe this feeling by Sister Blandina in the pages of the book, in my chapter. But Sister Blandina had a clear sense of her family, a family beyond the limits of possessions. The importance to Sister Blandina was to be all that all the things that we have on this heart must be left behind us. But the most important thing to Sister Blandina, because of her faith, of course, was to be all together. And there is these two letters and the dedication to Roland's father on a small book, very, very amusing and full of sense of humor. 2 and 2 are 4. So sure are the turmoils of our life. I quote by heart, but I'm rather tired. I don't want. But when our hour comes, turmoils and eternity begins. And this is wonderful indeed. And I owe to Sister Blandina this sense of eternity too. And she tried to tell her brother, her black sheep, that the most important thing was to recreate that familiar circle that they had had during their own life. And this was a very, very important message. The most important message, because we know, of course, that eternity is sure. But we must, as we are limited, we must think about eternity with our dearest people around us. So, let's go on. Reading all the things that you sent me, I had the idea, first of all, to prepare an exhibition, because we had a lot of documents arriving from the States. So it was a loss not to give them to the attention of the other people. From Chicagna, above all, and immediately after the idea of a book. But we were unprofessional at the most. You have to think that I have written articles on English or American literature in Italian, but I was not the typewriter of my articles. I gave all of them to some people and then bye-bye. Oh, what a nice book. You see, here is a chapter signed by me, and that was all. Carla Casagrande, the director of the public library, lived among books but had never conceived of one book. We were only 2. I had Nancy in my pocket, so I asked Nancy to write a chapter on the history of the research beyond the ocean. I was ready with Carla to write the history of the research on my side of the sea. Then we thought of Anna Maria Converso, a very important journalist, who was a specialist on Ligurian immigration. And so it was possible for her to give us a general picture of the movement. And then we went to see the houses of the segale. They were so fascinating, so full of atmosphere, so nice, so, that my sister, who is a civil architect, suggested me to write that she was ready to write an article on the houses of the segale and the life inside, deriving the kind of life inside these houses from the observation of the details of the buildings. And she offered also to draw the drawings for the book. Then we had the idea that it was impossible to write a book on Sister Blandina in Italian, not thinking of those who don't know Italian. Not everybody is so happy and so lucky to know Italian, as you know. So we looked, we had no time, but a young girl, an English girl, offered to translate the book. I have also to say that we offered our work all free, that is, working in our spare time. Is it clear that when we say we offered our work free, it was not completely free. We had to pay to do this work because we had to pay for photos, for letters, for the proofs, for everything. for instance, my daughter was happy to offer everything for the exhibition. Not one single cent was spent by the administration of Chicagna, which is a very small administration, for the exhibition, for the panels, for the paintings, for the photos, for everything. So the young translator offered her work freely. But I have to say that she was very, very young. And while I, well, not so very, very young, tried to steer her to translate as soon as the chapters were ready, she answered me, don't worry, I am, no, she didn't say I'm so young, but it was, I'm so young, I'm so strong, I can translate the book in one night. And I was happy, lucky girl who can translate a book in one night. I have my problems typing all the chapters in Italian and reviewing it. Then, in the last few weeks after, when we had, before we had to give the editor the pages, she came up, my computer is broken. I think I have another job, well-paid job. She's young, she has two daughters. What? And so I can give you the translation written with a pencil. And next Tuesday, I'll give you 2 chapters. And I prepared everything in my house to be ready to type in English, which is not my job. And she arrived only 1 chapter. And don't worry, Donatella, no problems, no problems. I had problems because I knew that I was not so ready to. However, we succeeded in giving the editor the pages typed in English. I have to apologize. They are full of typos. But it was, to me, it was better to publish pages that only you could correct rather than not having the translation in English. Because I hope that with a lot of kindness and generosity, you can go through the pages and forgive us. There is one terrible mistake above all, terrible mistake, because Rose Cordano is defined as Sister Blandina grandchild. And this is an explanation. In Italian, there is one word, and only one word, to translate grandchild and niece. That is nipote. Nipote can be a grandchild or a niece. I wrote, of course, nipote. The young translator, English, didn't understand the difference and translated grandchild. Not following the history of Sister Blandina, but it was funny indeed because I had chosen all the adjectives very, very carefully. And she translated only one. Oh. I had given the explanations very, very carefully, and she jumped over them. So I had not only to try to look through the lines written so strangely, but also to follow the Italian to understand if she had dropped some words. I didn't see grandchild at all. Please try to substitute was her grandchild, was her sister's child. I have asked Nancy and to Sister Marianne Murphy and to you all, please give us the mistakes that you can see over there on the pages, going through the pages, because in this way we can prepare a page with an errata corrige, that is to correct the mistakes, and so our reputation can be saved. The book was ready one day, we can say 1.5 days before the dedication of the square, where I had a lecture in Chiavari, the most important town near Chicagna, in front of many people, but above all, in front of all these people who came from America to visit, to be present at the dedication. So I was there, I spoke in Italian, and I was but yes, I mean, it was perhaps, no, not perhaps, surely I was selfish to pretend, to want to have them at my lecture. But I don't want to apologize with them, because it was my joy to think that I was speaking of Sister Blandina just in front of her relatives. One day later, we had the dedication of the square. I hope you can see the film, the video cassette that Roland has done. We wept. As you remember Shakespeare's Julius Caesar and Antony's speech, if you have tears, prepare to shed them now. We were all prepared. We shed, I wept. We sang our national anthems, full voice, full moved voices, and we were so happy. The dedication was a success, you'll see it, and the dedication is a square. The square is on the river with elm trees, very, very shadowy, and is always full of children and grandparents. And I have to say that when I speak of a family, I don't mean a family, parents, children, and so on. No, I have a widened sense of family. A family, and my grandmother used to say, this is experience, and this is learning, that children are not enough to make a mother, as students are not enough to make a teacher. And as a teacher, I appreciate, and as a mother, I appreciated these words, because she went on saying, love is the ingredient you must have to become a mother and a teacher with capital letters. And this is true. And so, all of you are grandparents of those children who play in the square of Sister Blandina. We are going on. First of all, because the former mayor of Chicagna presented a very ancient house in Chicagna, and once has offered this house for a new public library. They have to restore it and then to open it. And one room in this public library will be entitled to Sister Justina. The sense of family. The sense of family. And we are preparing ourselves to prepare something else for the dedication of the room to Sister Justina. We hope to have all of you here. And yes, and so we have to go on. And now I have a small present for you. This present has a particular meaning for me, and I hope it can help to you too. It's a nativity scene. I have to say that since my childhood, in my family, there is a tradition. The tradition was that my father had to build a nativity scene in the small wood around our house near the Mediterranean Sea, a house that my father, a civil engineer, had projected. And every year, when there was a new baby born, we are a lot of sisters, the youngest of the family had to discover where the nativity scene was, following shining stars, glued on a rock, on the trunk of a tree, on a leaf. And so we followed behind the youngster the stars until we arrived at the nativity scene. So did my children, Valerio and Maria Elisabetta. So did the other children, that is Federico, the rich in faith, and Francesca and Francesco, and all the other 10 children. Then all of a sudden, some years ago, Federico, the chief fate, died in the sea. And my father died 2 days after him. And we prepared the nativity scene, but near the gate of the small park around my parents' house. This year we have a new baby born, aged 2, and so we are prepared to follow the shining star again behind that baby. And so I thought that the nativity scene, which is particularly an Italian tradition, because San Francesco di Assisi has prepared the first nativity scene, has a particular meaning to my family, and I was very happy to see the nativity scenes in the art room. So now, if you can prepare my nativity scene, will be linked with me too and my family. Thank you very much. Thank you.